My name's Thomas Fisher. I'm from Belfast in Ireland, and I'm another trainer, and also up until recently I was a suicide prevention trainer. And my background is that, well, that's part of it, but a bigger picture that happened to us after the ceasefires in 1994, which seems a long time ago. We ended up in what we call a post-conflict situation, which in itself brought many problems. We had still to deal with the outfall of transgenerational traumas. We've seen an increase of illegal street drugs. Problems were many. But around 15 years ago, we've seen a large increase in suicide, particularly amongst young men. And at that time, the government had no strategy in place to deal with this upsurge in suicides. So much like some of the stuff we'll hear today, that about people having problems about getting things going with authorities, we had the same. So therefore, it was mainly relatives of those who had lost loved ones to suicide. Started a pressure campaign to push the government to respond to the upsurge in suicides. So as a result of that, we got a suicide strategy. And like all things, we still have to keep an eye on it. They still try to take it away from us at times. But through this period that I had retrained as a therapist, and I trained in the NADA protocol. And in our very early days, we started off what we called, along with the program, an assist program. I'll speak about that in a minute. We had what we called community intervention teams. Basically, we had a mobile phone. We got a call. We answered the call without need. And we used our assist intervention skills training. Until one time, I got called out, and I just thought, I think I'll take these needles with me. So I tried them. And as it happened, it was a young man that I attended to, and he was withdrawn from some drugs. So we found, in combination with the assist skills and the NADA protocol, it worked very effectively. So it gave us an idea of we need to train more people up in this. So that was the start of a process for us. So I'll try and go through this here. Okay, so this is just a little bit on what we know of crisis theory. And the middle line, where are we going? And for us, the crisis theory, the crisis is time limited. That's the most important time in a suicide intervention, and how we respond to that. There's three elements to suicide prevention as a whole. Number one, prevention, is based around education of mental health issues. That is teaching people to look after their and others' well-being. And the number two part of it is intervention, as someone is actually in a suicidal mode or crisis. And three is taking care of someone who has had an intervention, but sadly more often post-vention is working with bereaved parents, family, friends, colleagues of someone who has lost someone to suicide. As numerous research studies have shown that those affected by suicide tends to actually move into a high-risk group. So therefore, in itself, post-vention is prevention for the future. One of the programs we tend to use is a program, it's an assist program. It's applied suicide intervention skills training. It's a worldwide program. It's available in many languages, and it's regularly tested out. This is the program that we fought for and argued for to get at that time when we didn't really have anything. So the next question we have to ask is, assist in NADA, why? Well, quite often as a result of substance withdrawal, assist skills encourages dialogue as we use assist. For what we've learned to speak of the unspeakable sometimes is relief in itself. is the person at risk may not be able to articulate what's actually going on them. And if we see on the column on the left, these are many of the symptoms that the person at risk will show up. Shock, numbness, psychologically withdrawn, hypervigilant, physically aroused. We tend to notice that more with people who are withdrawn from the so-called legal highs. I don't know if you're aware of them, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with them. Some people will exhibit calmness. It's just, it's all different. So NADA, why? Well, I'm not going to preach to you what NADA does. I think most of us who work with NADA are very familiar with the outcomes of using the protocol. But if you can see what NADA does, it actually counterbalances what's in the left-hand column. So for me, it always made sense to use NADA. But like anything, sometimes it's like trying to push water uphill. It's convincing people that open your mind to something new and try this. So what we devised is we devised a portable kit. And this allows it was a small pieces of needles, sharp spocks, things like that. And it allowed us to be mobile. And that we could also use the kit anywhere. As we know, it's on the street, whatever. I had actually used it one time at the side of a river. And thankfully that person's still alive. However, it must be emphasized that ASSIST is the lead program. That is the skill in the intervention. Now, as we know, suicide can be a complex and complicated issue. So it makes more sense to bring an uncomplicated tool into play, but a very powerful tool. And NADA has helped open up when you're working with someone at times, because when someone is in a suicidal crisis, it can be very difficult work. And as you to take care of someone, it can take its toll on you as well. The other thing that we do say is when you are working with this, that if you are going to do it, that you must not leave the person alone, obviously. So the safety of the person is paramount. So our little kit is needles, ear beads, because some people may be, apprehensive about using needles, but we also used ear beads, sharp spocks, a needle pickup, Medi-wipes, cotton buds, if applicable. So the other area that we use the protocol in, and quite successfully, and this is just a quote from Edwin Schneidman, postvention is prevention for the next generation. And he has another very famous quote, which he puts down as, and I'll paraphrase him, the person who dies by suicide puts his psychological skeleton in the survivor's emotional closet. Okay, so the person who dies by suicide puts his psychological skeleton in the survivor's emotional closet. It means the survivors, family members, friends, colleagues can be quite often emotionally devastated by it, and they can carry the consequences of a suicide throughout their life. So in our experience, survivors identify with others who have experienced similar loss much easier. Trained mentors, survivors, support groups, these are all valuable. And who have experienced this loss is often the starting point for the healing process to begin. Because people, when they tend to come very early, and survivors of suicide will often be physical, psychologically, and emotionally numb. Many often speak about the reluctance to talk about their loss. Sleep loss is very high amongst them. Appetite, intrusive thinking, all the symptoms of what you could describe as complicated grief. And often they're not ready too early for formal counselling or therapy. It's still too very much early. And if we think of what we've seen on, I think it's slide 5, we know what the protocol is capable of doing. Calms, it's non-verbal, which is very important for some people. It improves sleep, improves appetite, declutters the mind, improves decision making, importantly, what I had seen, and then also on a personal level, what I've felt as well, it helps open one up to the healing process. So, for us, while we're actually experiencing a lot of austerity programs, which is economic cuts on public services at home, I'm more hopeful and optimistic that the not a process that we can actually push to get it out more, because we know it's very inexpensive to roll out and to help train people. There's a number of projects in the Belfast area who currently still use the NADA protocol, and particularly around the area of suicide prevention, and there's currently plans to further the training more. And so I'll just finish off with just a quote: when you needle first comes the spirit, when you hold the needle, you hold the tiger. Grow me to my and thank you very much for your time and your attention. Okay, thank you, bye bye.